Now, I want to talk about this story here about a teacher that is making 50% more money because she quit her job as a teacher and now went to work for Costco, which on the surface sounds outrageous, right? Oh my God, they're not paying teachers enough. Oh my God, Costco pays 50% more than a teaching job. And, I cover a lot here about what's going on in our local school district at Poway Unified. We talk about them quite a bit, especially when we have elections. We've had some of the school board candidates in here that have discussed their campaigns. We've talked a lot about school bond measures here in the Poway Unified School District. But this is an interesting issue because it highlights this topic of teacher salaries. And let's break this one down. So a 31-year-old teacher quit her job. She now works at Costco and boosted her income by 50% and quote, "I've never been happier." So she turned 30 and quit her job and went to work at Costco. And this sounds discouraging initially, right? So she said, "I no longer found fulfillment and a sense of worth in my work alone." She went on to say, "My priority is to have a clear divide between personal and professional lives. I want to spend time with my husband and our two kids and pursue the things that are truly important to me." I worked 60 hours a week and put in a ton of unpaid overtime between administrative pressures, testing requirements, and the endurance required to teach during the height of the pandemic. I was exhausted. I felt like I lacked purpose. Oh, wow. So this is interesting because in my opinion, kind of more broadly than just teaching or Costco, we spend at least 40 hours of our week on our work, on our career, for those of us that do work and have careers. And if you think about how much time we spend at work versus how much time we spend with family, the time we spend at work, we probably spend a lot more hours at work than we do with our family members. And I know for all of us, our priority is family. And she wants to prioritize her family first. And I get it. And I support her on that. But I do believe that it's important that you get fulfillment from the things that you do in your day job. Because your work shouldn't be a grind. It shouldn't be a chore. You shouldn't be feeling like I'm working for the man. I mean, when we develop our careers, we should have something that is fulfilling in our career, that is part of our passion. And it's a shame when people lose that fire, lose that spark, and work becomes drudgery. Work becomes a drag. And for a lot of people, work is like that. And I feel sad for people like that. And I feel sad for myself when I've gone through those periods. Ever since I've done this podcast, and I consider this part of my work, this is a very fulfilling project for me. I'm not making $1 million a year doing it, that's for sure, but I really enjoy it. And it's time for me that's well spent because it kind of, it is fulfilling, but it's also aligned with a lot of my values. And I think that's important. But for her, you think most people that go into teaching, really do this because they're pursuing some kind of a higher cause to make an impact on society and our youth and to make a difference. And she lost that flame, which is sad. Now, what was interesting is she said, "For 8 years, I taught middle and high school history and language arts at public and private schools. In 2022, during my final school year, my salary was $47,000. And I thought to myself, 47, okay, first of all, that's not a lot of money. Secondly, I'm positive our Poway Unified School District pays more than that if you have 8 years experience. And I looked it up at Poway Unified, here in San Diego County. If you have 8 years or more, you're going to make between $75,000 and $87,000 a year, depending on your credentialing, depending on your additional degrees, whether you have a master's degree or additional continuing education, or even if you have a doctorate, you'll make more. And then for every year beyond that, you're going to make more and more money. It's part of the step in, what do they call it? It's like a stepping stone kind of a pay matrix. I can't remember the name, what they called it. It was step and something. And then I thought to myself, well, if she's only making $47,000 after 8 years as a teacher. Yet here in Poway, they're making between 75 and 87,000 for an 8-year experience. I thought, oh yeah, there's no way she's in California. I mean, no way at all. So as I dug into this a little bit, I did discover that she's in Georgia, okay, where the cost of living is going to be a lot less. And then it kind of started to make sense. But she said at first when she got this job, she was making $18.50 an hour, a little less than what she earned as a teacher. She put in 40-hour work weeks, 5 days a week. She got $1 an hour raise when she hit 1,000 hours. And now she's earning what a teacher with 15 years of experience made at her last school district, which is 50% more than when she quit. So, it does invite the question, why don't teachers make more money? And you hear this all the time, right? I mean, a lot of times when there's a call to raise taxes, it's usually, one of the calls is to have better teachers and to reward teachers. You're seeing some school districts that are here in San Diego. I think the school district out in Alpine is building housing for teachers as kind of an additional benefit to supplement their salary. There's people that genuinely, most people have a soft spot in their heart for teachers and would like to see them make more money, but they don't. You might be thinking, well, why? Why don't they make more? Especially since we've been spending more and more money on teaching, more on education. I think the K through 12 education budget in the state of California is almost half of the state budget. I mean, even here, our local school district, Poway Unified, their annual budget is $500 million a year. Around, roughly speaking, around $500 million operating budget per year. There is already a ton of money spent on teachers and on education. You're wondering, well, why aren't they making more? Well, what's interesting is if you look at where schools are spending their money, there has been a surge in spending on school employees that are not teachers, whether they're administrators, managers, or they're in charge of other categories that aren't necessarily part of education, whether it's counselors, whether it's food services, whether it's a lot of other cases where there's a lot of school employees that aren't involved with teaching at all. They're definitely supplemental to teaching. They're administrative or they're in different roles, whether it's maintenance of the grounds or what have you. It's crazy. Like now, for example, another way to think of this is that Poway Unified claims that they get around, I'm going to get my math is roughly about, I think this is roughly right. It's about $11,000 per student per year. Now, other school districts around the nation get much more than that. They're getting funded by their state government to the tune of $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 per student per year. Poway Unified is around 11,000, if I recall. And that doesn't count all the money that's being spent in property taxes to pay for the bonds for the construction of the schools, because I'm just talking about the annual operating budget. But if you had a classroom of 30 kids and each of those kids was essentially bringing in $11,000 a year of, sort of state revenue, that means there's $33,000 of money per classroom. And you're wondering, well, why in the heck are teachers making like 50,000, 60,000, or even 75? You think that a teachers could easily make a third of that and then have the remainder go to other stuff. But the reason the teachers are getting squeezed in a lot of cases is because there's so much being spent on things that are unrelated to teaching entirely. Plus, there's all of the, of course, the benefit program for a lot of school employees is pretty generous, in terms of healthcare, pension, and a lot of other amenities. But I just thought this was interesting that she quit the job and she said, my work is no longer my identity. And that caught my attention because do you believe your work is part of your identity? I've battled with this one internally myself because there have been some times when I was very happy that my identity and my work were interwoven. But then there were other times that I didn't like that I thought, I was a lot more than my job. And what I did, my job was a means to the end being my own life. And there's a lot to be said about that as well. But in my opinion, because we spend so much of our time in our job, I think your job being one dimension of your identity makes a lot of sense because that's your work. It's what you do for the majority of your life. And the challenge for all of us is to find work that's meaningful, that's fulfilling. And for this particular person, it wasn't fulfilling. We're taught from a young age to think about dream jobs in terms of what do you want to be when you grow up? And according to this person, she said, now I spend more energy thinking about who do you want to be? And that's, I mean, that's right and not right. She is right in terms of being focused on who we want to be. And, we want to flourish in our life. We want to pursue happiness in our life. But what we are in our lives is a part of that. And what we do in our careers is a part of that. So the lesson here is your work, in my opinion, should be part of your personal mission, assuming you can find work that's aligned with your personal mission. And that's not easy to do, but sometimes you have to create that job on your own. And is work a place where you should get fulfillment? In my opinion, the answer to that is yes, because if you are not getting fulfillment from your job, then your career is just a grind. It's a job. It's not a career. I think we have to find ways to get fulfillment from this. The other angle of this is that she's quitting a teaching job and going to work for Costco. Do teachers deserve more money? I think you can make an argument, yes, but they have plenty of money in education. They just spend it on a lot of people that aren't teachers. And I think that's part of the problem is I think schools, the mission for schools has become so much more than education. It's now a place where there's counselors and food programs and athletics, and we can go on and on down the road of all these additional things that are part of the educational experience that have nothing to do with education, or certainly nothing to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I think that's part of the reason why we've lost our way. And I think part of the reason why teachers are not getting paid what frankly, they probably deserve, and why a lot of them are leaving the profession. Now, I don't know if this is still true, but is there a shortage of teachers? My hunch is yes. It's not an easy job. I was a substitute teacher, and I had some time on my hands about 10 years ago, where my business was going well, but I had some available time, and I said, I'm going to give teaching a try. I went out and got a substitute teaching credential. That was relatively easy to get, and it was pretty easy to find jobs to fill in. But being a substitute teacher in high school, that's a mixed bag, right? The way that your students will treat you, but sometimes it could be a lot of fun. But it's a difficult job what they do. But you know what? This is the other kind of crazy tangent. She went to work at Costco. I love Costco. What a great place that is. I mean, my wife jokes with me. That's where I buy the majority of my clothing. So what do you think of that? What do you think of that? Should teachers make more? Is a job at Costco that pays 50% more than what a teacher earns, is that a poor reflection of the values in our society? Or is this just proof that there's better opportunity in the private sector than there is in the public sector? Tell me what you think.